My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back, everybody. Eli here. And today on Meet Cool People, we have a very new friend of mine. We have just gotten to know each other in the last couple of months through the networking world, connecting on the business side of things, and found out that we became fast friends because of our love and backgrounds in the music world. And this is Andy Greider. He is the managing partner and chief dot connector at Domestic Growth Capital LLC. He helps catalyze positive change and incremental growth for companies with unique world-changing offers. He's also part of Healthcare Evolution Group, and he is an amazing music connoisseur and a super dude that I can talk to for hours on end because we've proven that already. So Andy, thank you so much for hanging out today.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm going to need to hire you for my PR as well. Thanks, Eli. I appreciate the introduction.
So, well, you and I, it's so funny because I'm trying to think of who was it that actually introduced us directly. Usually I'm better about that.
Oh, tough question. Was it Thomas Howard?
I don't know. Thomas didn't introduce us. I don't think. Wasn't Kara by chance, was it?
Keith, maybe? Keith Kempog?
Maybe.
I don't
know.
I'm going to have to go back and look. Yeah,
we're going to go back and look. I mean, it might have been Thomas, but I don't think so.
And to your point, I'm usually much better about this too.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because usually I'm really awesome at that, and I like
Diane Chubb.
What was it?
Was it Diane Chubb?
No, it was not her because I don't know her.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, because usually on this show I have like the timeline of how I got connected to everybody, and I just stopped as I'm starting my introduction here, going, okay, wait a minute, I don't remember exactly who it was that introduced us, but we've had 4 or 5 conversations since then, just in the last couple of months.
Quite a few, yes, actually.
Quite a few. And so we've talked business stuff, but you and I end up going down the rabbit hole of a lot of music stuff because we both have backgrounds in music as well. But we'll talk about a little bit of both, but give us a little bit more. I did an intro, all the stuff you sent over to me, but tell us a bit more about what it is you do and how do you help people out there?
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on. It's a pleasure to get to be on Meet Cool People. And I've had a very interesting career where the main goal has always been, first of all, to have fun, and second of all, to help people.
Right.
I believe those two things are integral to anything you're going to enjoy doing. It's where you become content and happy at everything you do, and then it doesn't feel like work anymore. So what do we do? Well, again, very, very varied background, and leading up to now, which is Domestic Growth Capital, we do very large projects that are usually, you mentioned world changers. They're people that are the only ones doing what they do, not just the best at what they do. So it's there's a hydrokinetic company that also does desalination in a way that no one else is doing it. We have another group that has built taken carbon nanotech and built wiring out of it, which is unheard of, but data centers and airplanes and things like that are amazing for it. We help them position and get introduced to the right people to get them into their next steps. And that's a large part of what we do there. We also work in a lot of import-export with the domestic growth capital side of things. So helping countries literally acquire things they need. Sometimes it's individuals, sometimes it's sovereign funds, sometimes it's actual countries. And they're ministers of, the economic ministers or people like that are looking for things. That's largely my partner that handles a lot of that. His name's Buzz, and he handles a lot of things there. My role is to run around and meet cool people and find the gems alongside the path, and then move them into the path and figure out how we all work together.
Right.
Prior to COVID, we were running World Growth Capital. We kind of left that space for a little while, and then we moved into Domestic Growth Capital because somebody stole the name, and that's a whole other story. And the
when it happens.
Yeah, it was our own fault. But the funny part is, Eli, I don't think we expected to get back into it. And then the other place we help people is in the healthcare arena. So we can help hospitals. We can help what are called FQHCs, which are federally qualified health centers. They're smaller rural hospitals and systems. But the crown jewel of that world is keeping your private practice private. And we help out with associations and societies and groups and GPOs and people like that want to offer solutions to the problems that most of their physicians are facing. We have a whole lineup of folks that are part of that program that can come in. It's really a 3-part program with a lot of webinars tacked on to help out with various things. So it's, everything from cash flow and retention and attraction and hiring and benefits to offering new programs that better benefit the patient, to things like a disability and long-term care check for the doctors to make sure their policies are as good as they can be, for their personal policies, their protection, their asset protection, their income protection, things like that. So there's a lot of pieces we can do there, and we love getting involved to help people stay away from the clutches of being absorbed by a hospital. Mm-hmm. We really believe that there's a network that needs to stay. So that's a quick run through. I mean, and then besides that, Eli, I like to connect people. I mean, you and I both have that proclivity and bent. And then I'm also travel foodie and music guy. So,
Very cool. So from the business standpoint, I'm going to focus in on the healthcare side, because I think that leads a little bit more to, you talked about a lot of different things, and if I heard it right, what you're doing is basically you're helping them from, how to grow and scale an operation, how to connect the dots, which that sounds like that's your specific area. It's like, okay, you need this resource. Here's who you're going to need to talk to. Let me introduce you, kind of person, which is such a powerful, powerful position. Usually that specific spot never pays enough. But you're doing stuff like that, and then giving them the resources to learn how to become a more effective business as a whole. Right.
Right. Yep.
Awesome.
That's fair. That's a very fair assessment, and very fortunate to get to do that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love it. And what was it that got you into the healthcare side, to jump down that rabbit hole specifically?
The other occasional title that gets thrown my way is disambiguator. So I'll take what doesn't make sense to some people and figure out a way to make it make sense to them, which, really comes down to a lot of what you do also, Eli, in the follow-up world, you're making it so that it's in their language and applicable to them and of value to them, right? You could send almost anything out, you can present almost anything, but if it's not of value to the person you're doing it for. So essentially, I had a friend of mine come to me and say, I keep doing this presentation and it's falling flat. I'm not getting any conversions at all, but I can get an audience because the problems are real, but I can't get. So I went in, I helped tweak the presentation. And the rest, as they say, is history, because the people that were in charge said, who did this? I got an audience with them. The next thing you knew, we were into healthcare, because I saw there being everything from the hospital systems down to the individual practitioners. At first were our target. We decided that we were going to concentrate on the smaller systems and the individual practitioners. Quite frankly, they're more open to change, and it's easier to make the change happen at a smaller level. And quite frankly, they probably need it more most of the time. So,
yeah, no, I can totally understand that. I mean, that's where, like, for me, I generally work with smaller businesses. Like I work directly with the owner operator most of the time. And even if it's not them, it's 1 degree separation. It's not any further than that. We don't have big boards. Anybody, if they say, I have a board, I'm like, I'm bye-bye. Because I don't want to deal with a board. I want to deal with the guy who's going to make the decision. And because they're faster, they're just plain and simple. They're going to make the decision and move faster with it.
They also fully understand the problems they're facing, which is the other big key. And that's huge. That's very, very helpful to know.
Yeah. Nice. Very cool. Awesome. So you and I connected in the music side of stuff. Give me a little bit more, just for everybody else listening, because, I don't know, a lot of times, actually, a lot of people probably don't know my background. My background was, I grew up in music. I was actually classically trained in voice, and I had a problem called stage fright, which is still entertaining since I'm a speaker now. I got into the behind the scenes stuff and basically became a roadie, right? And doing local shows. But that's how I got into all that stuff. And that's so fun because you and I started talking and you're talking about all these different shows that you've been part of and everything. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Loved music since I was little. Used to put on the headphones and dance around the dining room where the Sony rack system was, or the Sony component system was, with my mom and dad. Brought up on all sorts of different music. My parents were very diverse, and to their credit, they never said, "Hey, wow, that sucks," about anything I played, because they'd always kind of entertain something new too, which was cool. It kept me expanding. The quick background is, in high school, I ended up running sound for a band because one of my teachers was actually in the band and caught me in a bar underage and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I won't say anything if you come run sound for us tonight. I need help because our guy's sick." And I said, never done it before. It was a disaster, an unmitigated disaster. Horrible, horrible experience for all of us.
Right.
But I don't like to fail. So I figured it out. Right. I knew I loved music. I knew I could make people sound good if I understood all the equipment. Mm-hmm. And I did that for the better part of, up until a few years ago. I am an analog guy. I love my boards that have dials and sliders and knobs. I do not much care for being handed an iPad and saying, "Here, go run sound."
Yeah.
But that's where we're at now. So I'm not as into it. Plus, quite frankly, Eli, I just said it earlier, I'm somebody that doesn't like to fail, and my hearing is not range wise what it used to be.
Got it.
So I can't mix as well as I used to. But I love going out for live music. I still will happily help if I need to.
Right.
And it's a hoot. I mean, there's nothing better than the energy of live music, in my opinion. Nothing.
100%. For me, that is my perfect meditation. And it doesn't matter what kind of music it is. I mean, I think you and I've talked about it. It's like, I go to a lot of blues shows because for me, that's just soul serving, it's really where it is. And I couldn't agree more on that. Is like, live music is so different than anything else, especially when you're looking at real music, real guitars, real musicians actually singing, not a bunch of techno stuff. I like techno as well, but it's a whole different creature.
Well, and when you can watch the band and the audience feedback between each other, and realize you have, when running sound or knowing the band, you're helping fuel that interaction.
Right.
It's another piece to the puzzle for me, anyway. It always was and has been. And I've gotten really lucky. I mean, I've had very good fortune to be around a lot of amazing music scenes, whether that was Manchester, England, or whether that was Atlanta. It was all about timing,
right?
And being in the right places at the right time. But got very fortunate, and I don't know that I was better than the average bear, so to speak, at running sound. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I don't shy away from saying, yes, I'll help.
That's awesome. I love it. No, that is very cool. And it's, for me, when I got into it, like I said, I got into the scene side of it because of the fact that I didn't want to be in front of everybody. And
keep me on this side of the soundboard, buddy. Actually, if you ever want the fastest way to clear a bar, put me on stage for karaoke.
Yeah, I always find that funny. People will ask me about that because, like, for me, I tell them the story about the fact that I had stage fright and everything, and I always joke about the fact is, like, I got out of that because I had stage fright. I was not comfortable singing in front of people, but you put me on stage in front of 300 people, doesn't faze me one bit. I loved it. I love it. And then I was like, and they're like, so, and I'm like, no, you're not going to get me doing karaoke. It's not going to happen. I mean, I stop them because I know exactly where they're going with it every time.
I have the worst curse. I have no voice. If I sing in the shower, the water goes the other way. But I can remember damn near every lyric to every song.
Right.
Even if I don't like the song, I can usually remember the lyrics.
Okay.
And so I've got this, sort of, adjunct skill that will never do me any good unless I'm, sitting in a room by myself. So anyway, even my
Well,
dogs don't like my singing, which is a problem. But anyway.
yeah. Well, do they still do those competitions they used to when we were kids, where they'd play a nugget out of a song, and you had to be able to call in and know who it was by and the name of the song? Do
Oh,
you remember?
name that tune.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
kind of
I was
things.
going to say I can play name that tune.
Yeah,
That's not a
yeah,
problem. But
yeah.
don't ask me to sing that tune. That's
Okay.
not
Well,
no,
yeah. So
yeah.
no, I used to be great at that. Our local stations when I was a kid, I'd call in and I had that thing, or I could tell not only what song it was, who it was by, what album, what side of the cassette. That goes to show how old it was. I'd go through the entire process with them, and people were just like, "How do you do that?" And I don't know. I can't do that anymore. Now I'm like, I know this song, and I know I like the song, and I like them, but I can't think of who does it.
I'm somewhere in between those two things. But yes, you and I had the same skill set early on, because I would, especially when it came to the people I loved, like, if I was making a mixtape and I needed to add a song that was going to be 4 minutes and 53 seconds and go with the other things,
Yep.
I would pretty much know what I was going to grab.
Right.
And so I was big into mixtapes before playlists were a thing, before any of that was around. Again, back to tapes. There we are.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
That
is
we're
awesome.
Old. We're old, Eli. We're old.
Yeah, I didn't feel old until these last few years. I really didn't. For the longest time, I always believed old is a state of mind. And definitely, last couple of years have been a little different, but it's so funny now. We think about all the stuff that's changed, and we think, what was it? I saw something just recently about like the 45th anniversary of something, or one of them more recently, because as of the time we're recording this, the last Mission Impossible movie is about to be released. It's out like next week or next couple of weeks or something, and I went back and I've always loved those movies. And I remember seeing the first one when it first came out. And I'm old enough to also remember watching the TV show Mission Impossible. Right. So I was like, okay, these things are definitely old, but I had to go back and rewatch them because of the fact that it's been so long since they've done them, that it's like I forgot a lot of the story. So I went back and basically have been binge watching them a little bit here over the weekends to catch back up to this final one, which is the eighth one. And yeah. And I realized that very first one was like 2011.
Ooh, yeah. I was going to say the one that caught me by surprise a couple days ago was partially a meme, but it was the bottom part of the meme that caught me square in the jaw. Mm-hmm. The first part was The Breakfast Club turns 40 years old this year.
Yep.
And by the way, if you're reading this and you saw it in the theater, you're now older than Mr. Vernon.
That's funny.
And
that is hilarious.
Oh boy. I mean, no doubt you're definitely older than Mr. Vernon at that point.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So I think Vernon was like 39 in that movie. So definitely way older at this point than that.
Right.
So, yeah.
The good old days when things were still entertaining and fun. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I do find entertaining and fun. I think that whole thing that there's no good new music out means people aren't looking hard enough. It's just there's a lot more new music out, and unfortunately, pop radio doesn't play a lot of good new music, in my opinion.
Right.
Again, and it all depends on your opinion. I've got friends of mine that love pop music and current music. Just not my deal. No, not my bag.
Yeah. So, no, I get it. Awesome. Okay. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit here, because one thing I always like to do is give something that's a little bit more on the educational side too, not just the history of a couple guys talking about music. You posted something 3 weeks ago on LinkedIn, and this actually grabbed my attention. So I wanted to go into this with you. You talk about the subject was the 3 rules that became 5 rules.
Right.
You remember that post?
I do.
Okay.
And there's actually a fun story that goes with that, Eli. We came out of into COVID. Our current business model at that point kind of had taken a complete upside down turn, and we were scrambling. We were taking on clients to make sure we could pay bills.
Right.
And we weren't putting a whole lot of litmus tests on the clients. We were just grabbing, hey, this person needs this. We can do this. Let's do this. Proposal, here you go. And very quickly found that it wasn't working so well for us. We had a few clients we liked, but there were quite a few clients that let's just say it was stressful for both them and us.
Right.
And going to bed at night stressed and being a bit on edge when my wife would get home, when I normally didn't used to be on edge, that kind of thing, was not, panning out real well for any of us. And one morning I woke up at 3 a.m, had one of those board meetings, wrote down the 3 rules originally,
right,
and called my business partner the next morning. I said, I have this idea. Here it is. Laid them out. He said, that's great. When do we start applying them? I said, now. He said, to what? I said, to our current clientele. And he said, Andy, if we do that, we're going to fire 80% of them. I said, I know. Mm-hmm. But this is peace of mind. This gives us the ability to actually sleep at night and not be stressed.
Yeah.
So
let's go through those 3 rules.
The 3 rules are pretty simple. We all have to like or love each other enough to be in the room together a lot, because we will be.
Yep.
Secondly, we all have to trust each other. And to me, they're not the same thing as 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. You can like somebody but not trust them, and trust them but not like them. Right. And the third one, and is probably the more poignant one, was neither side, us included, is allowed to create ongoing drama. So if there's a lot of drama llama stuff going on, nope, sorry, we're out.
Right.
And then it kind of expanded. It became rules 4 and 5. And
okay. Before you go into rules 4 and 5, let's kind of go a little bit more into those 3, because I think it's a good baseline. It's like we all run into that situation. And I was just talking to somebody, I'm trying to remember if it was this week or just like the end of last week. They were talking about taking on clients and having the bad experiences and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, you're at that phase where right now you're taking on a lot of clients because you need the cash flow. However, you need to get to a point as soon as possible to not be doing that.
Right.
And I think that we should kind of dive into that a little bit, because for those of, you and I, again, going back to the fact how old we are, we've been around for a while in this, and it is so, so important to have some base guidelines of who you will and you won't work with. And I think that people skip that step way too much.
It's the tenacity and the integrity to stick with what rules you put in place too. Mm-hmm. Because, there's times when you're looking at it going, it's ramen this week, or I take this client, right?
Right.
And I'm dramatizing a little there. I'm going against rule number 3, but at the same time, it's a real thing. You can easily be stuck with, okay, this is going to be a comfortable month in the sense that kind of financially I'm comfortable, or this is going to be a uncomfortable month financially, but I'm going to be very comfortable with the clients I have. Mm-hmm. That can happen. And I really, truly believe, after as many years as I've been doing this, that I'd rather have a tough financial month or even series of months than I would work with people that I don't find to be the right people for us to be working with.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that if you hire somebody who's the wrong hire, you're better off letting them go quickly. Kind of taking that rule and extending it to staff and things like that, then, say we made a mistake and get out, rather than try to continue onwards. I watched way too many companies just try to continue on. Oh, they'll get better. No, they won't. Most likely, and that kind of thing. So, and then, like I said, over time, we've kind of evolved 2 other pieces to that, that are good litmus tests as well.
Okay. Yeah. And I think, I want you to go into those too, but, you brought up a really important thing that I want to kind of reiterate here, is the fact that this isn't just for clients. This is for your team. This is for your staff or your vendors, however your business is structured. Like for me, I don't have hires. I don't have in-house people, but I have contract workers that I work with. And you still have to follow these same rules, or else you set yourself up for a lot of stress and frustration. And I think that's important to know.
If it's not fun, and it's not making you content at the end of the day, it's time to reevaluate what you're doing and who you're doing it with. I mean, a lot of people think about that rule about 5 people. I think it was Jim Rohn or one of those folks that came up with it first, that, you're as good as the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Right.
But what people forget is they look at it on a business level. But actually, I'll give credit where credit's due. Donnie Bovine, if you look him up on LinkedIn, fantastic guy in the networking world. brought up
He's okay. He's okay.
I love him. I love him. He's a unique personality in a space that doesn't have a lot of that. So
Most definitely.
I can work with him. But he brought up the fact that it's not just the business side; it's your family, it's your friends, it's all the other pieces that way in the 5 people. Mm-hmm. So there's different circles of 5. Anyway, to your point, within the business, there's the 5 vendor partners, there's the 5 clients, there's the 5 contractors. Yep. There's those things that you're surrounding yourself with that are either propelling you or are not propelling you, that are, a stick in the mud, as it were. And, rule number 4 was really easy to come up with. Was we look for people that are looking for solutions, not people that are going to sit and tell us all the ways it won't work. Mm-hmm. Because that has some serious ramifications when you get into trying to get a project done.
Right.
If somebody's going to sit and tell you all the ways it didn't work or it won't work, you probably have figured most of those out already anyway.
Right.
And then we're looking for people that understand abundance over scarcity.
Yeah.
And that sort of ties into 4, but not exactly. Mm-hmm. And to that world, it's a simple matter of, do you understand co-opetition and collaboration versus competition and fear?
Right.
And it's a pretty, seems like a simple question, but I've watched a lot of people dance on that one, and they'll say they get it on the co-opetition and collaboration side. Mm-hmm. But as soon as somebody's selling a green widget and they sell blue widgets, they have a problem.
Right.
And it's, to me, the ocean's way too big to be trying to worry about, this person does what I do.
Right.
There's ways you can work together every time. And we look for that. And I guess the 6th rule that was unsaid, because it really became 6 rules, is we look for things that are world changers. I said that at the beginning. I'll say it again here. We're looking for the people that are broad brush able to make effectual change at a very large scale.
Nice.
That's very important, whether it's healthcare, whether it's on the domestic growth capital side, wherever it is. That's the other thing we look for. So.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. And, I want to touch on these last 2 that you brought up, because for me, you brought up solution finders. And that, to me, that's a core piece of me. Is I am always looking for, how do we just solve the problem? It doesn't matter who caused the problem. That doesn't do any good to point fingers, because all it does is cause drama, which goes back to your rule number 3. You don't want people to do that. And it's so fun, because I've had clients come to me and say, Eli, I really wish we had more people like you. And I was like, why? And they're like, because you never blame anybody for anything. You just look at, how do we find the solution to it? And it was over a situation where they had said something, I understood something, and those 2 did not align. We didn't know I don't know. And it's like, you thought you said this. I don't think that's what you said. I think you said this, but reality is, it doesn't matter. We just need to come to a solution and figure it out, fix it. That's it.
Yep.
And they really made a big point about this. And I realized when they brought that to me, I was like, you know what, that is something that I do pride myself on, is making sure that I'm always looking for that. And that's who, the people that I like to work with are going to be that way. Like my clients. I have one client that if something doesn't work quite right, they're like, okay, so we have to problem this out, figure it out. And they're not getting grumpy or anything. They're like, oh yeah, we'll figure this out. It's a problem to solve. Right. And they think of it as a fun challenge.
Well, I was going to say, it's a challenge. Exactly. It's not a setback. It's not a finger point. It's not a let's find the fault. It's let's solve the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And those are the kind of people you want to be around. It just, in all aspects of life, in all aspects, doesn't matter what part of your life. And I love that. And, to go with the number 5, you're talking about people that don't worry about the competition. You figure out, how do we collaborate? The reality is every one of us, no matter what our business is, there's thousands of people that do what we do, from a base level of the mechanics of the thing, whatever that thing is. Yeah. But every one of us, we have the way we do it differently. It's our personality, our experience. And I have people like, I do a lot in email copywriting, and I have a lot of people that I talk to, they completely disagree with the way I do it. And I might completely disagree with the way that they do it, but it doesn't matter that either one of us is right or wrong, because reality is we both have our own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
yeah.
It comes down to the solution-oriented mindset. Mm-hmm. So, you're either figuring this stuff out that way or you're not. And, to your point of having clients that are looking at it in a way that, okay, here's something to solve, here's, and again, getting to the collaboration. I mean, there's folks out there that I'm big fans of in the way in which they handle themselves. I mean, Chad Jenkins is a name that you can look up on LinkedIn as well, but I'm a big fan of how he does things. He does a thing called collab, which is he's bringing all of his clients together into a collaborational mindset. The other, there's other people out there that, like you said, are doing things differently than you and I might. But the other thing we look for is, did you build your model to solve the problems for your clients? And then are you touching, and the other part is always important, I think, when you're building a business, it comes back to the same 5 people thing, but are you building it around, for instance, you're doing work with, helping people with the follow-up systems and things like that in part of what you do. So who is it also who's talking to people that need that? Who are your best partners? And figuring out, did your system solve the problems that they know other people have, their clients currently have, and can they make a referral to you? Right. And that makes it, those are the pieces that have to fall into place for everybody to win. And that kind of brings me to the last point that I would make about our rules is everything we do is fun, is valuable, and is win-win-win, at least. And a couple more wins if we have to sprinkle a few more on there. Because we don't want, there should never be a loser when you're doing negotiations, bargaining, and factoring in solutions. There should never be a loser, ever. And I'm not a participation trophy guy either. So before anybody points fingers there, but seriously, when it's in business and when it's for the better good, what I'll call altruistic capitalism, that makes a difference. It's do good things for other people, make good money, and then do more good things to help other people.
Yeah, it really is simple. Not as simple to implement sometimes because people make it too complicated, but it is very simple. It should be simple. I agree. Awesome. Well, this has been awesome, my friend. I knew we were going to get into some good stuff. We had to go into the music stuff for a while because it was a lot of fun. But I think this alone was really powerful for everybody. And I saw that article and I was like, this is something we need to talk about because not enough people are talking about these kind of things.
Thanks for taking us down that rabbit hole.
Oh, not a problem. Of course. It was awesome. So we are getting ready to wrap up. I'm going to have 2 questions for you. But before I ask those, do you have anything else you want to kind of tell people before we finish up? Any last words of wisdom?
I would say that for most folks out there, the biggest tip I can give after multiple decades of doing all this stuff is if you're making connections between other people, make sure you explain why. You're making the connection. Take the time to say, I'm introducing you to Eli. He does this. Eli, I'm introducing you to Sam, and he does this. And here's what I see for the 2 of you. If you take the time to make those extra little steps, instead of just saying you 2 should meet, you create a lot of value. You give them a roadmap on which to base their first meeting. And last but not least, you are seen as someone who is truly integral in that next maturation of where things go. And that, to your point earlier of the people doing the connecting don't make enough, get enough acknowledgement, financially or otherwise. I think if you do those things, you start to solve that problem. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Wise words, my friend. I agree with you 100% on that one. There are times where I get connections. And I'm like, why are we supposed to be connecting with this person? Because I wasn't quite sure. Yeah. And I do that. When I make a connection with somebody, it's like, hey, Andy, I want you to meet Bob. This is why you should meet him. This is why it's really important. Bob, meet Andy. This is what we talked about. You guys have fun. Make connect the dots.
If it's really important to you, sit in on the first meeting.
Yeah.
That's the other part. It's not that hard to do. If it's worth making the introduction, sit in for the first 10 or 15 minutes. Make sure it's going in the direction you thought it was going to.
Yeah.
And, politely exit if you need to.
Right. No, I like it. It's awesome. Very cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up here now. Last question is going to be the easy one, which is how are people going to get a hold of you? But before that, every guest has to answer this question. This is the Meet Cool People show. So what do the words meet cool people mean to you?
It's really interesting, actually, Eli, because it harkens back to a lot of the things we've talked about here today. It comes right back to, who are you surrounding yourself with? Are they people that are fun? Are they people that are, problem solving oriented? Are they people that are going to do it without large extensions of drama? And are they people you like? I mean, is this somebody you're going to say, hey, wow, this is somebody that I get. This is somebody I really like. And so when I meet cool people, the other thing is it always spawns more cool people, because if you meet cool people, they know cool people. So there's my answer to that question. Hopefully that gets you where you wanted to go, Eli.
Yeah. I love it. It was very well put. I love it. Awesome. Okay. So last question. This is the easy one. How do people get a hold of you?
Easiest way is go to my LinkedIn profile. Almost, I think every bit of contact information possible is there. It's andygreider@gmail.com is the catch-all that hits every device I own. And that way we're sure if somebody wants to call me, they're welcome to, or text me. It's 404-516-4204. And last but not least, on the healthcare side, there's healthcareevolutiongroup.com. So that's another way to look for us.
Awesome.
Happy to be here, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate this.
Well, thank you for being a guest. This was a lot of fun. I knew it was going to be. That's why I invited you on, because, I do find cool people that I like to hang out with.
Right on, man. I'm looking forward to more hanging out.
Definitely.
More hanging out. And I'll look for this to be up whenever it's up. I'm looking forward to sharing it with folks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Some cool people, right? There you go.
Most definitely. And, I always tell everybody, get connected to Andy. You got to get out there, check it out. I say, go to his LinkedIn, connect with him there, and read some of the stuff he puts out there, because he puts some really good thought-provoking stuff out there. And I can say that there's a lot of people that I'm connected to, and there's a lot of people that I skim by their stuff. Yours is not one of them. So I
really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, I want you to publicly hear me saying that, because it is 100% true.
Thank you. It's the goal. So I'm glad I'm meeting it for at least one person who's reading. Thank you.
There you go. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, everybody else, this has been a good show. As always, get out there. Have an amazing week. If there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out. Let me know. Take care. And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.